seriousness, haven't been able to make videos in about the last week to 2 weeks. Had a lot going on, work and stuff around the house and what all, so I've been a little preoccupied. Unfortunately, YouTube channel is definitely still in the growing process, so I'm only able to do this when I have some spare time on my hands. I eventually want to grow this channel, but today on the agenda, finally, I've been telling everyone it was coming, Tulsi Gabbard. We're going to talk about Tulsi, okay? And I'm going to start off by saying this: anyone who doesn't really know about Tulsi, watch the video, and then I encourage you to go look into Tulsi, do your homework. Right now, Tulsi has the polling percent, if I'm not mistaken, to qualify for the third round of debates. But she does not have enough individual donors. So please, people, it's not about the money, it's about how many people donate. With a stage full of Cory Bookers, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, John Delaney's, the list goes on, Buttigieg, Beto. With people like that on this stage, we need Tulsi on the stage. Tim Ryan's, even. We need Tulsi on the stage. Bill de Blasio's. We need Tulsi on this stage. We need her to expose these people, to call them out. We need her to fight. We need people like her on this stage. We already lost one who I'll be making a video on very early on because the media was out to get them. Wouldn't give them any TV time. Wouldn't cover their agenda. And they were the second person to announce they were running for president. And that was Richard Ojeda. I wish he was on this debate stage. I really do. But out of what we've got, I'm in favor of Tulsi over everybody else. I've had my say on Bernie. I agree with a lot of stuff on Bernie. I actually watched a clip with Bernie and Joe Rogan not too long ago. I'll be making a video on that in the coming days. And I was really impressed with what I saw. I've heard this message from Bernie before, but I think he had a better, he was able to really explain his message on healthcare a lot better than he has been in other venues that I've seen him in. And again, I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on every single policy. I covered that. The minimum wage, for example, I think that's much more complex than passing one blanket minimum wage across the board. I think it could actually possibly do more harm than good that way. Okay? But today, we're on to Tulsi. So let's just start with a few things about Tulsi. Obviously, first and foremost, Tulsi is a veteran. Okay? And the media has not one single solitary thing to attack her with other than she's an Assad apologist, and now here we go with old Russia again. She's a Putin apologist because she uses diplomacy and speaks to foreign leaders, something many congressmen and congresswomen and senators have done for a long time. But because she meets with these, they're using a tactic they used on President Trump, and obviously people should know if they've watched his channel by now, I voted for Trump over Clinton in 2016. And if the election were tomorrow and it was Trump and Clinton again, I would vote for Trump again. I am not 100% behind everything Trump has done since taking office, but I would rather vote for a billy goat than to vote for Hillary Clinton. And that's why I won't throw my hat behind Joe Biden. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of that status quo. And I don't care if it's from the right or from the left. They're both crooked, they're corrupt, they're bought, and they're paid for, and they have to go. They have to go. We need, whether you agree with Bernie, I have my disagreements. And I still feel like he's a bit more of an insider at this point because he's been in there for so long. He sold out to Hillary Clinton in 2016. He endorsed her, and when all that took place, Tulsi would not get behind the corruption of the Clinton campaign in 2016. She had some serious issues with the DNC over what happened with Bernie. Okay? So Tulsi, to me, is a woman of her convictions. She doesn't let people run roughshod over her just because they think she should be doing something for the money. She doesn't go that way. She doesn't operate that way. Okay? So Tulsi wants out of all these endless wars, wants out of all the perennial conflict. She wants that to all go away. That is a huge A+ in my book. That is some serious likability. And that put her way on up at the top of the list compared to a lot of other people. But then she's exposing media corruption and the double standard. She even called MSNBC out in a clip for trying to attack her with the whole side thing. And she's like, well, what are you doing? Reading talking points from Kamala Harris's campaign? Yeah, because they want people like that to get the nomination. They want people like that to be elected president. And it doesn't matter what you hear people like Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Joe Biden, all these people saying, they are status quo to the end. They will be the same old song and dance if you put them in office. Mark my words. Mark my words. Now, if you don't do your research once they get elected, you might let the media fool you into thinking that they are different. Just like a lot of people let the media fool them into thinking that Obama was a whole lot of what he promised to be, and he was a whole lot of nothing. He didn't close Guantanamo Bay. He took us from 2 wars into like 7, bombing all these other countries, trying to, perform more regime change. He didn't get marijuana legalized across the board like he said he was when he was campaigning for president. And we didn't get the healthcare system that he promised. And the whole reasoning behind that was, oh, well, we had to reach across the aisle to get some Republican support. For what? You had over 60 votes in the Senate. That means the Republicans couldn't have filibustered one freaking thing that you wanted to do. Period. You had the House. It would have passed in the House. And you couldn't give us the health care program you said you were going to give. Instead, you went with the old Richard Nixon policy. And you blame it on wanting to be bipartisan. No, let's tell the truth, Mr. President. The truth is because you and Joe and all the rest of you corporate Democrats are bought and paid for by big banking, big pharma, military-industrial complex, and the Republicans are too. You're two sides of the same coin. And you've got your financial interests in mind. So with that being said, without further ado, let's hear straight from Tulsi on a few clips here herself about why she's running for president and what she wants to do and what she stands for as a candidate and what she would stand for if she became president. Let's take a look.
Aloha. So, Congresswoman, I'm going to ask you what we always ask everybody who's running here. Why? Why are you doing it?
You have that crazed look in your face. After 9/11, like so many Americans, I wanted to do something to serve and protect our people and our country. So I enlisted in the Army National Guard, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, and in 2012, along with now Senator Tammy Duckworth, became one of the first female combat veterans ever elected to Congress. It is those values of service before self that every soldier, every service member represents that I want to bring to the White House, to reinstill those values of honor, integrity, and respect to the presidency.
Very brave of you to join up like that. That's great. Thank you.
It's my honor to serve.
Sure.
Thanks.
Now, how did your experience fighting in Iraq shape your outlook of the United States' role in foreign policy? Because in my research, I found that you have a strict non-interventionist approach, and you are against the United States entering countries and being there for this sort of regime change.
No, as a soldier, I deployed with our brigade combat team from Hawaii. I volunteered to deploy with them to Iraq in 2005, which was the height of the conflict there. I served in a medical unit where every single day I was confronted with, in a heart-wrenching way, the high human cost of war. Very first thing I did every single morning was go down a list of names of every single American casualty, every single service member who'd been injured the day before. And I had to see if any of our brigade soldiers were on that list, make sure they got the care that they needed, or to evacuate them as quickly as possible. But as I went through this list every single day, I was struck with the names and the faces of my brothers and sisters who were paying the price for this war. I was struck with their families, their loved ones at home, who were so stressed and so anxious for the well-being of their loved ones. It is those experiences of understanding and knowing firsthand the cost of war, both on our service members, on our veterans, as well as the cost on the people in the countries where we intervene, as well as the trillions of dollars, our taxpayer dollars that are spent on waging these wars, dollars that are sorely needed to address the very real urgent needs of our families, our communities, our neighbors right here at home.
So should we not get involved when we see atrocities abroad?
We have to understand, looking at Iraq, Libya, and Syria, for example, that there are brutal dictators in the world. And unfortunately, there are people who are suffering as a result of that. But in so many examples throughout history, when the United States takes action and intervenes and launches these regime change wars to topple these dictators, the suffering of the people in these countries increases. Their lives are made worse off than they were before. There is far more death and destruction. Libya is a perfect example. Muammar Gaddafi was toppled. Now, today, we have more terrorist groups in Libya than ever before. We have Libyan people, women and children, being sold in open markets as slaves. So while these wars
Which we didn't have before when he was there?
Which didn't exist before.
No?
And so
Sorry,
let's just finish this one point, because we feel for the suffering of people in these countries, and we want to be able to help them. And so many of these wars are begun and waged from a place of humanitarianism.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and it's a harsh reality, that there is more suffering and more loss of life and more destruction as a result of these wars, which does not serve the people in these countries, nor does it serve our interests and our security.
Congresswoman, first, thank you for your service, which is something I say to everyone who has served that comes on the show, and I think it's important. That being said, my understanding is you know how I feel about your stance on foreign policy, and when I hear the name Tulsi Gabbard, I think of an Assad apologist. I think of someone who comes back to the United States and is spouting propaganda from Syria. You have said that the Syrian President Assad is not the enemy of the United States, yet he's used chemical weapons against his own people 300 times. That was a red line with President Obama. That is not our enemy. 13 million Syrians have been displaced. So when you say regime change is hurtful for the country, but gassing children isn't more hurtful, it's hard for me to understand where you come from a humanitarian standpoint if you were to become president.
Well, you're putting words in my mouth that I've never said.
You did not say that Syrian President Assad is not the enemy of the United States. Say it now, clarify.
The issue here is, how can we help alleviate the suffering of people?
Just really one moment. Is he an enemy of the United States?
An enemy of the United States is someone who threatens our safety and our security. There is no disputing the fact that Bashar al-Assad in Syria is a brutal dictator. There is no disputing the fact that he has used chemical weapons and other weapons against his people. There are other terrorist groups in Syria who have used similar chemical weapons and other weapons of terror against the people of Syria. This is an unfortunate thing that wrenches at every one of our hearts. This is not something I'm disputing, nor am I apologizing or defending these actions. My point is that the reality we are facing here is that since the United States started waging a covert regime change war in Syria, starting in 2011, the lives of the Syrian people have not been improved. Their well-being has not gotten to a better place. Their suffering has not decreased. It has increased, in addition to the fact that Al-Qaeda is stronger in Syria today than ever before. So not only are we dealing with the fact that this regime change war we've been waging in Syria has not helped the Syrian people, it has made their lives worse off.
Bashar al-Assad
it has also undermined our national security, leaving us in a place where Al-Qaeda is a stronger threat there than they ever have
Now,
been before.
Tulsi.
And Iran has greater influence in Syria than ever before.
Tulsi, you and I know each other, and you and I have had these discussions and arguments over text and over phone. I've told you how much, yes, how we disagree. People text, right? I'm not. How we disagree on this issue. We've had it on the phone as well. I'm very troubled by the tweet about Venezuela that you've put out. We've talked about that. What Maduro is doing to the people of Venezuela. There's over 3 million that have been displaced. People are starving. He's not allowing humanitarian aid in. He is a thug. He is a dictator. He is corrupt. And I am very supportive of what the United States is doing right now, leading the solidarity and support of freedom-loving Venezuelans and putting sanctions, economic and sanctions. Why are you so against intervention in Venezuela? Not military intervention, but what we are doing.
Because every time the United States, and particularly in Latin America, has gotten involved in regime change, using different tools to enact that regime change, there have been both short and long-term devastating impacts. If there are ways that we can work with surrounding countries to try to get humanitarian aid into people there, then we should be doing that. But for the United States to go in and choose who should be the leader of Venezuela, that is not something that serves the interests of the Venezuelan people. That's something that they need to determine themselves.
But the U.S. is not choosing who's going to be the leader of Venezuela. It's millions of Venezuelans marching on the streets. But do you put military intervention on the same level that you put economic and diplomatic efforts?
The United States has used both military, CIA, sanctions, and other tools to intervene and enact regime change in countries around the world. Iran is a great example. The CIA led a covert operation to overthrow the government in Iran decades ago in Mossadegh. This led to decades upon decades of hardship and suffering and authoritarian governments, and has led us to the place where we're dealing with many challenges today from Iran.
We're going to come back with more from you because I think you have more to say on this than you should. I'm just wondering if this particular position that you take is going to be a popular one in the Democratic Party.
This is a position that I have found many Americans appreciate and understand because we understand that every one of us is paying the price for these regime change wars that are not helping people in these countries, and they're counterproductive to our interests at home.
I believe Trump said something similar when he was running. Did he not? Am I wrong about that?
He may have, but the problem is
he
has not carried through.
No.
He has gone back and has broken his promises.
Congresswoman, you were very well received here. Tell us what is your message that distinguishes you from the other candidates. 24 candidates.
Yeah.
Hard for people to remember 10 of them. Why should they remember and start leaning towards supporting you? What is your argument?
Yeah, I shared here today my experience. My first trip coming to South Carolina was as a newly enlisted soldier in the Army National Guard after 9/11. I've served now for over 16 years. I've deployed twice to the Middle East, and in Congress have served for over 6 years on the Homeland Security, Foreign Affairs, and Armed Services Committees. So I shared with them, my experience in understanding the importance of national security and also knowing the cost of war. And the kind of leadership that I bring comes from this experience of ending these wasteful regime change wars that have cost so many lives and trillions of hard-earned taxpayer dollars that instead of going towards investing in the needs of our people, things like healthcare, education, infrastructure, protecting our environment, trillions of dollars have been going to pay for these wasteful wars and this new Cold War and nuclear arms race. So the leadership that I bring will end these wasteful regime change wars, work to end the new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest in our people, use those resources to put their needs, their interests, and their well-being first and foremost.
Now, you're a member of Congress. Where do you stand on those that are calling for impeachment inquiries to start in Congress?
I don't think that's the right route to take, and here's why. The American people in this country have been so divided and so torn apart. I think pursuing that route of impeachment would only further divide the country. I think it's important that we defeat Donald Trump and that the American people and voters rise up and say, we want to get this guy out of office. We want to have a president who will put the interests of the American people first and foremost, and that's why I'm running for president.
Many of the voters in South Carolina are African American.
Yes.
How do you deal with the race gap? We have the class gap, we have the gender gap, but we also have a race gap.
Absolutely.
Black women don't make the same as white women annually. Blacks are still doubly unemployed. The criminal justice issues. How do you deal with the race gap? What is the Gabbard for policies that will bring us more toward a nation of equality?
Well, these are many of the issues that I've been working on in Congress and that I focused on here today with people who are here at this convention. Ending this failed war on drugs that has disproportionately impacted black and brown people, people of color, people whose lives have been destroyed and torn apart. Friends of mine that this has happened to. Ending the federal marijuana prohibition. I've introduced the only bipartisan piece of legislation to do so, supporting ending the cash bail system, really passing true sentencing reform, dealing with the fact that maternal mortality rates disproportionately impact black women over everyone else. These are the kinds of issues that we need to tackle to bring about true equality in every single aspect of our lives.
You're on the first night of the debates.
Yes.
It's less than a week away. How are you going to distinguish yourself on that stage in Miami on Wednesday night?
You know, it's really the message that I've been bringing to voters across this country, bringing the unique experience that I have that no one else on that stage will bring, and this message of understanding how our foreign policy is inseparable from domestic policy, that we have to deal with the cost of war, ending the wasting of our taxpayer dollars on these wasteful wars, and invest those dollars in making it so that we can provide health care for all, we can provide a quality education, we can rebuild our crumbling infrastructure.
All right. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
stopping
much,
by.
Reverend. Aloha.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
We just talked about Senator Kamala Harris. So far, she's gotten a free pass from the press on her presidential run. They want her to be the next president, so they are overlooking her background. She is a former prosecutor, as you know, but the press has let her rebrand as a crusader for prison reform. No one's called her on it until last night. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii definitely called her on it. Watch this.
There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
It was an electric moment, and it might be why Congresswoman Gabbard was the most Googled candidate since the debate last night. She joins us tonight. Congresswoman, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks, Senator.
So I haven't heard anybody say what you said. Why are you the first person to say this?
Hey, look, voters deserve to know the truth. You know, the decision that the American people have before them is a critical one. The decision that Democrats have before them about who their nominee should be is a very important one. They deserve to know the truth about the candidates that are before them, and especially on this issue of criminal justice reform that's impacting so many people across this country because it is so broken and it is an unjust criminal justice system. Senator Kamala Harris was in a position to be able to make a difference in that when she was serving as Attorney General. And as I pointed out last night, she did not fulfill that promise that she claims to have, which is to be a champion for the people, be a champion for the oppressed. In fact, she did the exact opposite. She made decisions that ended up hurting people, that ended up hurting minorities, hurting poor people in the state of California, which is concerning to me for someone who wants to be the president of the United States and frankly, who's claiming to be a prosecutor president.
So I think this is a really interesting debate. This topic deserves a real debate. You have a perspective. She's got a perspective. You know, let's hear them both. She would not engage with you. And that's what I found contemptible but also fascinating. Rather than rebut what you said, she dismissed you, and her spokesman later dismissed you even more savagely, as a Putin apologist. What do you make of that?
You know, a couple of things. First of all, what I was sharing was not a matter of opinion. These are widely reported facts and reports about her tenure as Attorney General in California, her career as a prosecutor. And we're not talking about something that happened, 30 years ago or 50 years ago. These are things that she did in her last job, just before she was elected as U.S. Senator, and she should be held to account for them. She's claimed to be very proud of this record, so answer for it. The voters deserve to know. But you're right. She refused to answer the question. She refused to engage on the debate stage. And the responses from her and her campaign after the debate was basically to lob cheap smears and basically say that I'm a traitor or a foreign agent or a Trojan horse or whatever it was, and trying to feed those talking points to the media. So, this is concerning on many levels about how a Senator Harris would govern as president. That if there are those who are critics of her or her record, for me, I'm a two-time veteran of Middle East deployments. I'm a soldier currently still serving in the Army. I'm a sitting member of Congress, and she's smearing me in this way. Imagine what she would do to anyone else. As president.
I think it's a fair point. That's a fair point. It's the first refuge of the contemptible, I think. What did you think of CNN's debate, the way they ran it? Were you satisfied with it?
I think it had a little more decorum than we saw in the first debate. But, look, I wish there was a more fair and balanced approach in how every candidate would have the right amount of time to be able to address these important issues that we face. There are many of them. 60 seconds and 30 seconds are short periods of time to be able to dig into these issues. So this is where I'm looking forward to being able to continue to build the support for our campaign to make it to the qualifications for the next debates in September and in October.
Yeah, I mean, the one place you don't want to be in Washington is outside the status quo as you are. That's when you start getting it from all sides.
Well,
but you're obviously...
Tucker, a lot of the conversation around this and the things that we're talking about, again, really come down to valuing this role, this job of president, and that most responsibility of commander-in-chief, and appreciating the freedoms that we hold dear in this country. If I have the honor and privilege of serving as president, I can guarantee you that if there are critics to my record or people who disagree with my policies, I'm not going to label them as foreign agents or traitors. Having this vigorous debate is a part of who we are as a country. And it's something that we've got to appreciate and actually honor the voters and the people of this country in making sure that we're providing them with the truth and the information that they need to make the best decision possible.
Amen. Tulsi Gabbard, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. Appreciate
Thank you.
So there you go. I think that about sums it up. We're going to make another video about why she's suing Google and let her explain that for herself in some clips. But between the attacks from Kamala Harris and what do they have? Putin apologist, Assad apologist, blah, blah, blah. They make it sound real bad, but let's just be clear, people. What are they attacking her on? They are complaining and attacking her for trying to use diplomacy. Diplomacy. She's trying to avoid war and conflict. And why? Because she has actually served in our military. She's seen what war does. She didn't like what she saw and don't think that we need to be involved in endless conflict so people can make some profit. Pretty sure the majority of American people feel that way. But once again, the military-industrial complex is funding the campaigns and making sure that their agenda keeps on going thanks to the status quo. And that's why someone asked me recently, don't I just want some normalcy back in politics? Aren't I tired of all the ruckus, all the infighting? And the answer to that is, do I want things to be normal? Sure. If it's the right kind of normal. If the normal is that we finally have a government, once again, that is of the people, for the people, by the people, and that is the normal. You're freaking right, I want normal. But if normal is what we've had for the last 20 years, Joe Biden, Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush, well, then do I want normal? No. Not a chance. I don't want that normal, because that normal has been screwing the American people over 6 ways from Sunday for too long. Way too long. Way too long. I don't want that kind of normal. We need someone to go in there and shake it up. President Trump said he was going to make a lot of shake-ups. He's made a few. But I really wish he would have followed through on certain other things like the Citizens United issue. He never brought it up a lot. That was more of a Democrat issue all along for more left-leaning candidates. And I'm not talking Joe Biden and Clinton. I'm talking Bernie Sanders and that side of the left. Way on out there in the left. And you know what? That's something they're dead right on. Citizens United needs to go. All this big corporate money being funneled into politics and such, that's why you have a lot of the problems that you have right now. Is because Citizens United says that a corporation is entitled to freedom of speech, and because they can't actually speak, because they're not an actual person, that they are allowed to use their money as free speech. Their money represents their free speech. And do I need to say it a third time? Their money is their free speech. I don't speak with money. You don't speak with money. By that logic, as they used in a debate between Shapiro and Cenk Uygur, if I want to go pay a prostitute, guess what? I didn't buy her services. I was speaking to her. That's how crazy this is. So Citizens United most certainly needs to go. And we need someone who's going to go in and fight that battle. I think Tulsi will be one of those people. And maybe there's a couple other people who would follow through on some of those promises. But once again, I have to wonder why they're so hell-bent to keep her down. Keep her message silenced, keep her down, shut her ad account off so she can't run ads after the debates, even though she's the most searched candidate. Something's afoot here. And they don't want her to go any farther. And I think I know why. I think I know why. But she has broken this down very well. So for any of you out there who are more left-leaning, plan to vote Democrat, I encourage you to go look into Tulsi Gabbard. If you absolutely do not like President Trump, you're definitely going to vote for a Democrat. Before you set that you're going to vote for Buttigieg, Warren, Sanders, Biden, Booker, Harris, any of these people, I encourage you, go look into Tulsi Gabbard. You're going to see a lot of smears on her. Putin, Assad. Don't take it at face value. Dig into it. Do your own research. Figure out that she's really not trying to sell out to the communists like they want you to believe. She's trying to use diplomacy. She's trying to avoid war. And she will probably be one of the candidates up there that will do her best to carry out everything she's promising to the American people. And the top of that list is getting us out of all this endless conflict. And that should be a priority number one, because we are spending way too much money in unnecessary conflict, unnecessary DOD and defense budget spending. It's out of control. That's why the Pentagon can't even pass their audit. The one audit they've taken in however many years. They take one audit, they fail it. And gee, did we expect anything else, considering way back in the early 2000s, you got Donald Rumsfeld coming out saying the Pentagon can't track so many millions and billions of dollars. The Pentagon, you know, you hear all these parties arguing about which government program is the best effective in terms of spending the money the most efficiently. Well, I could tell you who's the worst. And that would be the defense industry, the Pentagon, the defense budget. It is wasteful. And there are many other issues in this country we should be investing our money into instead of just constantly trying to stay involved in conflict so some people making the equipment for conflict can keep making money. That's bull. And I fully believe that she would be 100% true to her word about getting us out of that. So for all of you, I'll say it one more time. Please do your research on Tulsi Gabbard before you commit to anyone else on the Democrat stage. Do your research. Inform yourself. Because there's a lot to learn on Tulsi. Way more than I can put into one video. I'd never get anyone to watch all the way through. I don't even know if I'll get a lot of people to watch this long, because it's going to be a pretty long video. But do your research on her. Do your research, inform yourself, and at the end of the day you will find out that she is, you're probably going to see what I saw, whatever. Why she is the best choice from who we have on the Democrat platform. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please hit that like button and please subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, ring that bell so you'll receive notifications when we drop new videos. I'm trying to grow this channel and inform more people of what's going on in the world around them. Thank you for your support, and we hope you tune in next time.